today. This is the last session for today. So we will not hold you hostage for any longer after this. So this session was made because we figured that we need to have in-person dialogue between the representative of Youth Leads Board, which all works in country level, and then moderated by us who works at the regional level. And then we also would like to invite our regional partners who also involved heavily in the regional strategic plan development. And then of course, colleagues from the UN offices, the regional UN office in Bangkok. And we also would like to identify gaps and opportunities, and at the same time ensure that we have a concrete ways moving forward from today. So we have like four amazing speakers today, and me, because I'm not a speaker, even though I'm also amazing. And so let's start with Rob first. Okay, because they say, what is it? Youth first? No, it's ladies first. Is it youth first? Youth first. I think it's youth first. So, regarding the situations in youth movement, especially in the Philippines, right? Because we mentioned the alignment in our strategic plan with national and global plan at the same time. What do you feel are the most urgent issues facing by young people today that are still being overlooked by global development agencies?
Thank you, Agatha. When we contemplating the questions while you're throwing it, there are numbers of issues that actually concerning and in particular to young people. But the bottom line here is, where is the young people amidst of these issues and concern? I mean, we can cite on HIV, we can cite on mental health, we can cite on sexual reproductive health, governance, creating policies, but where is the young people? Are we always anticipating that young people is just being consulted? Are we anticipated that we just need their inputs, but they are not part of the steps from the beginning up until on the quality and quality assurance of the plan that we are creating? So I guess that's the bottom line. But if we're talking about the specific issues and concerns, more likely some of the young Filipino facing, in specific in the Philippines, young Filipino facing nowadays is the increasing numbers of the HIV infections in the country. At the same time, Filipino people or the Filipino service provider are seeing HIV as a biomedical concern, still a biomedical concerns. So they actually not see it as a human rights concern as well. So on that note, some of young people are actually having a hard time to reach and to have an access on services based and tailor fit on their needs and priority. At the same time, we cannot also discount some of the policies that the countries are developing, because some of the policies are only creating based on the needs, but what is the actual implementation of the policies? Who actually benefited on the policies? So I think that's some of the pressing issues that I can raise on the countries. And maybe the other countries can also agree with that, because human participation is very important in developing any initiatives that we are trying to solve. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rob. I feel like it's a very def- it's kind of like a reflective questions, but at the same time, it's also evaluating how well our movement has progressed so far, because asking like where is young people not only ask the questions about representations, but it also asked the our own movement.
Yes.
Do we have young people, especially as all of us are getting older, some of us more so than others, and do we have younger generations
Yes.
ready to even take the fight even further than what we have done so far? So thank you, Rob, for that. Next, I want to ask Toni, as someone who also works in youth issues, right? How do you think youth-led organizations build stronger, and but not only stronger, also equal partnerships with UN agencies? Like, what support is most needed?
Right. Well, thank you very much for that question. First and foremost, I'd like to recognize first that there is a power dynamic at play. When we talk about youth-led organizations and the UN, of course, youth-led organizations are mostly in the grassroots. A lot of them are not at all registered. A lot of them do not have access to funding and capacity building, to resources, documents, or any policies, right? If they do, it takes them a while before they can actually access them. So given that context of a power dynamic between the organizations, I think organizations such as, I'm going to speak really boldly now, organizations such as the UN, I think this is also a sentiment that has been going on for a while, that it has to shift from tokenism to co-leadership as well. Just like what Rob was saying earlier, we need to ensure that young people are engaged not only in the consultation, but also the conceptualization, the implementation, the monitoring, the evaluation, and re-evaluation of the projects and the programs that are being done, implemented on the ground. There's also a need to recognize that and recognize and resource youth expertise. We all come from different backgrounds, different socioeconomic experiences, health status. You have your academic background, and if you ask me, in my own personal experience, I never really learned. I was already active in the development sector when I was 16, but I never really learned about what the UN was actually doing until I was about 28 or 29. So it wasn't that readily available, that information, and being able to recognize and resource youth expertise would be a great way to provide context for the UN on how to really engage with young people who don't know their processes, the system itself, and what's in it for young people to know about the UN. Yeah, and also to build long-term and trust-based relationship as well. We strongly ask the UN to provide more long-term investments on young people, not just project-based, short-term project-based engagements. And although, of course, there is still an understanding that a lot of the funding that UN also has comes from other donors as well and has limitations, and we understand that. But if in the future, at the same time, in the future, we would really, appreciate if it was more, long term for young people. What support is needed? Core funding support. That's to relate to the last point that I said, and navigation and access. What's in it for young people to know about the UN system? As I mentioned earlier, a lot of young people do not know what the UN is, and what it does, and what its effect or impact in society is. So, nevertheless, the organizations that are working on the ground do not have any means or knowledge on how to actually access resources from the UN. And of course, there's an intergenerational allyship. UN staff and senior leaders must act as allies, opening doors, sharing networks, and advocating for youth inclusion in high-level spaces. This also means investing in adult readiness, training UN staff to work with youth in equitable and non-paternalistic ways, and non-tokenistic ways. So youth-led organizations are not the future, not just the future. They are also the present. If the UN is serious about leaving no one behind, it must start by walking beside the young people already leading the way.
Thank you so much, Toni. I think one key takeaways from your end is for youth-led organizations and youth activists to form a long-term trust-based relationship. Wow, I never thought about those sentences before, but now I know. Thank you so much. Thank you, Toni. Next, I want to ask our wonderful Michela joining us all the way from Italy. Hi, Michela. Can you hear us well?
Hi, I can hear you very well. Can you hear me, Agatha?
Yes, thank you so much, Michela. So I want to ask you, I think everyone's here are aware with the current global funding situations, right? Especially within HIV programs globally. But how is UNAIDS ensuring the sustained and meaningful participations of young key populations in shaping HIV responses and funding priorities?
Thank you, Agatha. Before answering your question, I really would like to take this opportunity to acknowledge the leadership of Youth Lead, Youth Voices Count, and YPR in shaping and advancing this youth strategy that was presented in the morning. It was really a pleasure to see how the strategy has been developed and the critical priorities that have been identified, and the fact that the three main youth networks in Asia and the Pacific have collaborated together. So congratulations on that. I think that in the current context of funding cuts and uncertainty that was discussed in the morning, this strategy is not only a testament to the power of youth leadership, but also show it is a critical tool for advancing equity and accountability and impact. That is what we need if we want to progress towards the end of AIDS. And now I'm gonna move back to your question, and I want to reiterate that we will not end AIDS without the leadership of the young key population. And I would like to agree with what the other speakers have just said in terms of youth leadership, youth empowerment, and equipping youth with information and access to information to be able to lead the change. But I would like first to start with some data that has just been shared or released by UNAIDS in the new Global AIDS Update that is called AIDS Crisis and the Power to Transform. And how it's this data have also implication in terms of the response for young population in Asia and the Pacific. So we know that Asia and the Pacific has seen just a 17% drop in new HIV infections since 2010, which is far below the global progress. Young population are still being left behind as they continue to face disproportionate risks in the HIV epidemic due to stigma, discrimination, criminalization, and lack of access to tailored prevention and care services. That has been mentioned earlier in this panel, but also in the discussion in the morning. Also, the report highlights insufficient HIV prevention coverage for adolescents and young adults, especially in Asia and the Pacific, where prevention services are often underfunded and not youth appropriate. And also, I would like to emphasize that the report notes that young people are frequently included in name only without decision-making power, so the tokenism that we were talking about earlier. But I also want to emphasize that despite these challenges, young people are leading in Asia and the Pacific, and that the work that you are doing today and you have been doing in the last years and I've been witness to, it's a reflection of this leadership. Youth-led networks are driving innovation, accountability, and peer support. And UNAIDS is working to ensure that that leadership is recognized, funded, and sustained. For example, we are making efforts to ensure that youth voices are part of the process of shaping the future of the HIV response. The next global AIDS strategy, for example, is being built with young key population through regional dialogues and consultation. We had one a couple of months ago with key engagement and leadership by Seven Alliance and Youth Lead, and other youth-led consultations that have been organized at the global level, but also digital platforms and the engagement of the PCB NGO delegates like Jeremy, for example. Then I hear you about community-led monitoring and youth-led research. They are essential components of an effective and inclusive HIV response. And young people in this region are generating the evidence that is pushing governments to act. And UNAIDS will continue advocating for funding and support to community-led monitoring and research led by young people. I also would like to emphasize that the Global AIDS Update remarks the impact of the sudden large-scale funding cuts from international donors and the impact that is having on countries that are most affected by HIV. And across Asia and the Pacific, we have seen youth-led initiatives forced to scale down and shut down to the lack of direct support. Despite growing recognition of youth leadership, several youth-led organizations still can access sustainable core funding. UNAIDS urges direct, sustainable funding for youth-led organizations and peer-led services. They are often the most effective at reaching young population. Donors should start investing directly in youth-led organizations with flexible multi-year funding. Governments must include young people in national HIV plans and budget, and not just through consultations. This means seats on National AIDS Council, Global Fund CCM, and planning task forces with the power to influence. And youth-led network must be recognized as implementers, not just advocates. Youth already have the skills and reach. What they need is trust and resources to scale their work. UNAIDS will continue to advocate with donors, support youth-led networks as Youth Lead, YPR, Youth Voices Count, and engage with national partners to ensure youth leadership is recognized and integrated within national systems. And I think I will stop here, Agatha, if there are any further questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Michela. I don't have any single points that I disagree with you. I think it is such a wonderful thing that we have so many allies for youth movements in Asia and the Pacific, but also at the same times, we still have a lot to catch up and to do because we don't have enough political power and connections to ensure all of our demands are being met by those who have the powers and means of productions to meet it. But thank you so much, Michela, for raising the points. Now I want to ask Worapot from UNESCO, since UNESCO mostly focused on young people in education settings, right? How can UNESCO better support young key populations? And I'm talking about like young key population champions, right? Because young key population is like one specific groups among youth in leading comprehensive sexuality education efforts, especially in restrictive environments.
Thank you so much, Agatha. Thank you for highlighting one of our strategic framework, which is on comprehensive sexuality education. So before I move to my my response to your questions, I would like to congratulate the three excellent youth-led organizations which UNESCO have been had a chance to closely work with. And I would share that my team, Education for Health and Wellbeing, we work with young people with youth network to provide to demonstrate a transformative youth-led supporting network. Now we are currently working with Youth Lead to co-convene a project reference group, a youth-led project reference group that govern our 5 years projects, starting from having them engaged from the beginning, the conceptualization to ensure, to quality assure the project implementation, from the design to the implementation and also to the evaluation. We did have a chance to invite YVC this year around February to our learning exchange and validation meeting of the mid project programs. So we did engage you throughout the process of our program. Back to your questions on the young key population champions in leading CSE, the comprehensive sexuality education, especially for the restrictive environments. When I first time receiving that question, it's a bit difficult to me to provide a clear response, because we both all aware that implementing HIV CSE related program for restrictive and sensitive context it's always remains the challenge. So I would say, but at UNESCO Bangkok, we see YKP as an essential leaders in advancing our one of the core strategic framework on comprehensive sexuality education, especially in the context of the CSE remain sensitive. Our roles is to provide them with the tools, safe space, and meaningful opportunities to engage. One of the example, it's like this year, UNESCO together with in a collaboration with UNFPA Thailand and Laktai Foundation, we revised their training manual, which called Teen Gen. UNESCO provide technical support and input to make the content more accurate, inclusive, and youth-friendly, especially for YKP advocate. This upcoming revised manual will be launched in August. So I will make sure that I'll share with the network, so you have a chance to see. And then that manual will help them to strengthen their skill in navigating complex issue like sexuality, gender identity, and human rights. Beyond that, UNESCO also part of the UN Thailand Joint Team on AIDS by providing technical support to the Ministry of Health, and it's also include contributing to the National Sustainability Plan for HIV and malaria. And also we also participate in the country coordination mechanism, and this action to ensure that YKP are reflect in the national plan and also in the education responses. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Everybody, please give a round of applause for all of our speakers. It's actually very wonderful to see that the answers from both UNAIDS and UNESCO kind of reflects each other. So that means at least there are some integrated works and efforts that is being made and is being held in our UN regional offices. So before we continue to our sessions, I would like to open the floor for questions. We can receive 2 questions if anyone would like to ask to our amazing speakers, not me. Anyone wants to ask? Okay, one. We have one. Another? One more person? Okay, so only one. Okay.
Okay, hold like this. Okay, so so regarding the UNESCO work on CCM, ensuring the young people engagement, is it only in Thailand or across the Asia Pacific? Just want to know, to hear about that.
I answer on behalf of UNESCO Regional Office in Bangkok. We cover 4 countries in this region, which is Thailand, Laos PDR, Singapore, and Myanmar, if I understood correctly. So our portfolio, like my team portfolio, we work at the Asia Pacific region, because my supervisor, she's regional advisor on health education. So we have some work going on in Japan, in Philippines, countries that are not covered by UNESCO Bangkok. So my answer is yes, we work across, and the regional intervention, regional projects is also one of our approach to work.
Okay, is that clear, Harry? Okay, thank you so much. And last, Eddie.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for that lovely discussion. Since we have UNAIDS here, hi, Michaela. Well, Vanessa was just here and she's left because she's not feeling too well, but she did raise a very good question in the previous session, which was about the high-level meeting. Now, this is on the agenda for quite a lot of youth-led networks. So, Michaela, the question to you would be, what would be ways that young people can engage in the preparations for the high-level meeting next year? And then maybe the second question would be, how have the priorities shifted and where do you see young people being placed in those changes?
Thank you so much, Michaela.
Thank you. Thank you, Eddie. So in terms, let me start about the priorities. What I want to say that we are working on the new global A strategy, and the new global A strategy, as Vanessa was mentioning in the morning, I don't know whether the outline has been shared or made public, but definitely we can have additional discussion with Jeremy. But I want to stress that it continues to place communities at the center. Although there is not a dedicated priority area for youth, and we can recognize that, but there is still room to include priority actions that are focused on youth and key population. In the coming months, we will have a timeline, a roadmap until December on how we can continue to contribute at the regional level to the development of the strategy. And I think it's very important that we continue the collaboration that we started at the beginning of the year with the 7 Alliance and the other, the different networks in order to continue to provide our inputs. There will be also theory of change and additional rounds of the review that will be held with co-sponsors, BCB members and other partners, but we will hear more after the 17th of July. And I will definitely keep Youth Lead and the 7 Alliance posted on that. And definitely the youth strategy that has just been presented, all the consultation that we have done last year, I think they are critical elements to continue to input and inform the strategy. And we will make sure there are spaces where these priorities can continue to be communicated and shared. In terms of high-level meeting, I will also get back to that as we haven't initiated a discussion at the regional level yet. But as soon as this starts, and I assume that it will also come in the coming months, PCB has just happened, and we will have also another PCB in October and then in December. And I think everything will be planned timely and accordingly. So as soon as more information is made available, we will make sure that Youth Lead and the other youth group are at the center of the preparation as we did for the previous high-level meeting. So I will get back to you with more information, Eddie and you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Michaela, and thank you, Eddie, for raising the questions up. I think it's very important because personally, this is personal, okay? This is personal. I'm not representing Youth Lead when I say this. Hearing high level kind of scares me. You know, even though I'm tall, like hearing high levels kind of like scares me. But thank God we have Jeremy in Youth Lead. Okay, now thank you so much, everyone, for asking questions to our speakers. And before we wrap up the sessions, I would like to ask, to quote Sabrina Carpenter, short and sweet answers from all of our speakers before we close our session. Starts again from Rob. How do you think the UN agencies can better show up as allies in moments when youth voices are excluded and or underrepresented? Remember, short and sweet.
Okay. So this is actually not only from me, but this is a collective statement coming from the young people working on the network in the Philippines. They actually quoted, "Speak up with young people, not just only for young people." So they wanted to have a strong initiative when it comes that UN agency not only inviting young people to be consulted and to become part of the dialogue, but also they actually wanted UNAIDS to be part, UN agencies to be part and stand with them when their voices are ignored and amplify the cause in national and global spaces. So one of I think UN agencies can better show up allies in the moments that youth voices are excluded on underrepresented is another one is local representation also matters. Our notions usually on the consultation, it should be on the national landscape, but more importantly, we should also hear the local voices that young people might not heard for a long time until they reach their adulthood, and without hearing them as a young people and adolescents. So I think strong allies with UN agencies also calls for representation along with the young people and not only for a cause for young people.
Thank you so much, Rob, on that. Next, I would like to ask Tony. It's the same, short and sweet. What are some practical barriers you face when maybe you have experience in trying to access funding or technical assistance from UN bodies?
Thank you for that wonderful question. Okay, so I'm just going to list it down, right? One, the complex and bureaucratic application process. There's a lot of requirements, documentation, legal registration, financial history, and the language barrier is also there. And a lot of technical jargons as well that grassroots organizations cannot, what do you call this? Meet, right? There's also a lack of core and flexible funding. But then again, I mentioned earlier that there are limitations to funding even at the UN level. There's also limited visibility and access to opportunities. Many youth organizations, especially in rural and marginalized communities, are unaware of available funding streams or lack the network to access them. That is also true in the Philippines where we come from. Most of the information is basically thrown into Manila, Mega Manila, Imperial Manila, but not into the provinces. Sometimes it doesn't even reach us. And we're a regional network. Yeah? And there's also eligibility restrictions. You need to be registered in order for you to be qualified, and you need to be operational for a number of years, or you have to partner with a larger NGO. Now, for technical wise, there's always this one size fits all capacity building. Yes, the UN provides a lot of technical support. And we had that. We were given that multiple times. But there are some cases that they may need some, more tailor-fitted support for some organizations in some instances. So we'd love for that to actually be more streamlined in the future. Limited youth involvement in program design, inconsistent follow-through, and digital and infrastructure gaps. So we, young people, are always asked to innovate, but not trusted to lead. We're invited to consultations, but not funded to implement. What young people need is not just a seat at the table, but the tools, trust, and resources to build their own. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tony. This is my first time hearing the term one size fits all being used in such a powerful political way. Usually I heard one size fits all in other settings. like community events, like Silom, for example. Anyway, next, Michela. Again, short and sweet. Michela, how is UNAIDS plan to support the transition of youth leadership from symbolic representation to more decision-making power?
Thank you, Agatha. And I really agree that it's time to move from rhetoric to structural change. And while youth voices are increasingly included, too often their role is still symbolic. And we have talked about the important role that youth, young people can play, and the leadership role that they have in the HIV response that need to be supported and strengthened, resourced, and also recognized in full. So UNAIDS is committed to shifting this by supporting youth leadership in different interconnected ways, building pathways to decision-making spaces, ensuring that youth-led organizations are part of governance structures, for example, CCM, National AIDS Council, Technical Working Group, etc., and working with governments to institutionalize youth engagement in policy design, budgeting, and monitoring. The critical importance of investing in youth as implementers, advocating for direct funding for youth-led networks, such as through Youth Lead or other catalytic regional grants, promoting youth inclusion in funding proposals, and encouraging donors and government to shift from short-term grants to long-term strategic partnership with youth-led organizations, and strengthening capacity for sustainable leadership. UNAIDS will continue to work alongside youth networks to identify resources to strengthen capacity for sustainable leadership. And I want to emphasize that collaboration and partnership have never been more important, and it's through shared purpose and mutual support, as we are seeing today, that we can sustain progress, protect hard-won gains, and ensure that no one is left behind. Thank you, Agatha.
Thank you so much, Michela. I was thinking when listening to your answers that we've seen so many adults in so many spaces, the Global Fund, UN bodies, National AIDS Council, to the grassroots initiatives of safe houses for people with HIV and young key populations from working class in rural area, in Metro Manila, Imperial Manila, big cities, small cities. And I think if we have so many adults in that spaces, I think we also deserve to have so many youth in those spaces at the same time. You know what I mean? I would like to see below 30 years old UNAIDS country director.
Yes.
Right?
I definitely agree.
Right? Like 20 something being UNAIDS country director. Like, ooh. Exactly, right? Well, some people, because some young people are very powerful and determined. Some are retrospective and lazy, not like me. I also deserve to be represented, as the lazy youth. Anyway, let's move to our next speaker, Worapot. Again, short and sweet. How is UNESCO working to localize comprehensive sexual education, right? Because Asia-Pacific have so many culture despite being colonized years ago. Thank God, Thailand and Nepal now. That are culturally responsive but still uphold human rights and gender equality.
Thank you for the question. This is also answer part of Tony's intervention regarding to providing tools to young people to actually implement the work. One example that our UNESCO did together with Youth Lead. I know that Ariana also very well know about this. So we did we adapt. We in the supporting of Youth Lead, we revised the Teen Gen manual by integrating one of our video material resources on CSE. We call it a MES video. So what we localize that resources, learning resources, we do the youth consultation, and also we work with, we have also another round of regional youth consultation to ensure that the revised Teen Gen manual can be rolled out in the country context regarding to their different culture, and also to respect the diversity of their background. So this is the example. We did adapt the MES video into 3 languages, in Thai, in Laos, and Vietnamese. And we did have a chance to partner with YouLead to actually let the youth network to use this video through the Teen Gen manual. I think that's the one of the example that I think I want to share. Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much, Worapot. It's kind of bring back memories and sort of like in retrospective how multi-year effort was this, because the regional Teen Gen training happened before I joined Youth Lead, but I also was the participants. But the local training in Vietnam happened after I joined Youth Lead, so it's like very long because I was 20. This is me bragging. I was 20 years old when Teen Gen regional training happened, and I was 22 when the Vietnam, 22. Yeah, exactly. Thank you so much, everyone. Anyway, please once again give a round of applause for our speakers. Thank you so much for providing us, especially for Michela in Italy. I think this is around 7 a.m., 6 a.m. in Italy. Thank you so much for joining us from Italy. Good morning. I forgot to say that earlier. Good morning, Michela. So I would like to summarize the sessions before I hand it back to Jeremy. That the work and collaborations between young key populations or youth-led organizations in general and UN bodies has always been there, because I believe UN bodies as the global institution has some of the most progressive workers and activists in the respective issues. However, improvement is always possible and needed through the construction of the means of partnerships and allyships. And so the key takeaway that I can get from our dialogue today, the first is youth-led organizations and UN to collaborate to prepare ourselves. I mean, I guess we already did or currently still doing it, but more to prepare ourselves in this hardship, the global funding tragedy. Tragedy. And then also because it's also marks another states of the risings of anti-gender and fascism and authoritarianisms around the world. And also UN administration bureaucracy is collectively evaluated as too complicated by youth-led organizations. And miscommunications is very understandable if we're talking about, working together. But what can we do about this? And I hope all of us, when we finally go home and, doing our work, daily work again, I hope these questions remains in our head as we move on our daily works, monthly. And so we still ask, what can we do to improve the collaborations between UN and youth-led organization? My name is Agatha. Thank you so much for today.